So today's topic, we are looking at how to support mom returning to work after having a baby. I know that for many parents in the room, when you're expecting a baby, deciding when mom returns to work and after giving birth or maternity leave can seem straightforward. But once you're home with baby, maybe the return to work date is approaching and it doesn't feel as simple anymore. For some in the room, maybe we have the fortunate enough to take maternity leave. And for others, returning to work may be a complete necessity and need to do it quite early after baby is born. But either way, the logistics of returning to work need to be put into place, such as childcare, coordinating working times with a partner or husband, making plans to express milk or pump, what happens in case of an emergency or somebody is ill and you have to stay at home. And on top of these things, there are the emotions that mom and dad may
Oh, I think we might have lost Ruth there. So Ruth is saying on top of this, there are emotions from mum and dad that experience fear and anxiety of returning to work and the guilt for leaving baby. And so today we're going to look at how the local church can support mums who are returning to work after having had a baby. So I don't think it's breaking news that mums work hard. I think it's a tough job raising kids and it takes a lot of time. A study that was conducted in 2018 found working mums clock or work an average of 98 hours per week. And that's about the same as working 2.5 jobs, which is crazy. And then we expect mums to work as if they aren't mothers, and we expect them to parent as if they aren't working. And so transitioning back to work after parental leave is hard. And if we think about it, mum's been out of work for a few weeks or a few months, and she has a little baby to care for now. So her priorities may be different, and she has a lot to plan before returning to work to make it easier. And so I'm sitting here today with Blue. She's a colleague of mine at Common Good, who has recently returned to work after having a baby boy called Onashe. And Onashe is 6 months now.
Yeah.
And growing up really fast. And so Blue and I are going to discuss how returning to work has felt for her, what some of the challenges are that she's faced, and what helped her overcome those challenges, or what does she wish she could have received from her church or community around her to be a good working mum. And so I want to start with a quote that I read, and I'm sure some of the mums in the room today will agree. And I'm going to see what you think, Blue. So the quote says, "Returning to work after being home with a new baby is a transition that's like no other. Everything is changing, from your practical day-to-day schedule to your new responsibilities as a parent, to your identity in terms of how you've been seeing yourself your entire adult life. And adding to the pressure, you're making this transition whilst taking care of a little human who might not be sleeping very well." And I think Blue here today has had that experience last night. So does that sound, it sounds about right for you, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can all relate today, we can relate to mums in our church and our community who are going through something very similar to this. And so as FTD friendly churches, we can surround those mums with support, empathy, and love whilst they're taking the step of returning to work. And my question is, can we equip mum as well with tips and ideas of what she can do to prepare well to make this transition back to work easier? And so going back to work is a challenge, and there's no perfect path. The role we play as First Thousand Day friendly churches is to remind mum to have the faith that she can walk this path well. And so as we're talking through today, if you have any challenges that you yourself may have experienced returning to work, or maybe your wife experienced, or maybe the mums in your community are experiencing, please put it into the chat box, and so we can discuss that as we go through the next hour. So let's start with a bit of the law with regards to mums returning to work after having a baby. For me, I had to do a bit of research for this. I'm not sure if everybody else knows this, but the basic conditions of the Employment Act, which was from 1997, the Ministry of Labour issued a code of good practice, which is on the protection of employees during pregnancy and after the birth of a child. And so this code was made to protect employees during pregnancy and after having a birth of a child, for mum and for dad. And so with regards to maternity leave, if you're pregnant, you can take up to 4 continuous months of unpaid maternity leave. Hopefully your workplace will have provision to pay maybe part-time or full-time for that leave. But if not, you can also see if you qualify for maternity UIF. More specifically, though, is that no employee may return to work for 6 weeks after the birth of a child. Or should I say, mum may not return to work for 6 weeks after birth of her child, unless there's a practitioner, medical practitioner, midwife that says it's okay to do so. And this is true for any type of work that mum does. So this is whether she works from home or from office. But unless she works for less than 24 hours a month, so anyone who works over 24 hours a month and is full-time or permanent or just more than 24 hours, that is what the code of good practice says, is that they're not to return to work before 6 weeks. And I think this is understandable, as we know how important that time is within those first 6 weeks, and especially if mom is breastfeeding and bonding with baby. But this act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, further states that no employer may allow a pregnant mom or a nursing mom, so breastfeeding mom, to perform work that's hazardous, both to her health and to her child's health. And so it says that the employers to make provisions for breastfeeding mothers when they return to work after maternity leave, and it explicitly states that arrangements should be made that the employees who are breastfeeding get 2 30-minute breaks to go and pump or express milk or to breastfeed. And what I was reading was saying that a toilet is not a safe space to express milk. And so employers are asked to, or part of the act is to get a clean and private space for mum to express or to breastfeed. And so I'm going to ask Blue here if she knew about the labor law before when she was pregnant, or how did you find out about your breastfeeding rights returning to work?
Hi everyone. So yes, I had known about it because in our workspace we do a lot of training about knowing your rights and in the workplace, you know, and also your human rights. So I think that information really helped me to make an informed decision, and like from informing my employer that I'm pregnant the moment I found out, so that they can make provision for how I should work physically, and knowing that, I mean, we react differently when it comes to pregnancy, you know. So I think because I had already had this information and having a conversation with my leader, and also having conversation with some of the moms at work that knew more about the law, and they were quite helpful. Like one was like, hey, if you need help about UIF, let me know. So there was that kind of support in terms of information was available at my hand, yeah, so to say.
That's great. So it was calling on others' information for support to get clued up, should I say, on rights. So it's good for mums to find out what her company, employer, workspace has as policies in place for maternity leave, for breastfeeding, all of that. So that's great. Blue's slightly more at an advantage that she works in the same company as Sukunya. But I also know that mums feel quite a lot of guilt when leaving their baby and having to return to work, which is normal. Mums also, I know, question their decision of returning to work, whether they should or shouldn't, which is normal. And mums ask themselves if they're ready to leave their child. Maybe they're feeling anxious about their decision of daycare or childcare and whether it's the right choice. Or there's also, what if they're actually happy to go back to work? Maybe they feel guilty that they shouldn't be happy to return to work. So are they bad mums? So there's also the pressure from the outside of what people are judging you by saying the decision you make. And so whether you are going back to work too early or whether, you should be going to work to earn some money. So regardless of what emotions mum is feeling or what her decision about returning to work is, she still needs support. And so I want to ask Blue, what was your decision about going back to work? How soon after having Onashe, and how did you feel?
So I had 4 months of maternity leave, which was quite helpful. How did I feel? I was looking forward to going to work. I think I struggled connecting with my baby in the beginning because of it's new and thinking of the way I grew up. So I was just like, oh my goodness, I just want to get out of the house and see other adults and mingle and just seeing faces. So I was personally looking forward to just being out of the house and seeing how I would be when I'm not with Onashe for an hour or two. So yeah.
Okay. And then the actual going back to work on the day you returned, and
it was a struggle. Yeah, it was a struggle. It was a struggle emotionally because you don't get enough sleep. I'm sure moms here would identify with this. Like, you are so sleep deprived. You emotionally, you are all over the place. You constantly feeling frustrated. You are dripping most of the times. And I actually I didn't miss Onashe the first day, and I felt bad. I was just like, is there something wrong with me for not missing my son? But I think I had missed being outside. I had missed being me without Onashe. But I mean, my body was screaming, "You're a mom," so I couldn't take that away. So it was a struggle in that, the being tired, sleep deprived, and having to concentrate, and also having to find who I am in terms of the work environment. How do I see myself now than when I used to before I had Onashe?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think this probably highlights the benefits of maybe having a strong support system around you.
Absolutely.
If you had a strong support system. And that support system can be a partner, a husband, friends, church, your community, friends at work. But having a strong support network as a working mum is so important, because it's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and end up feeling quite lonely and depressed, despite constantly being surrounded by people. And so I love the image that's on the screen now, which is the benefits of a strong support system, which, if you see it saying, having a strong support system reduces stress levels, it can connect you to the outside world, it offers you practical help in times of need, so people coming and supporting you and giving a sense of belonging. It protects your mental health, so when you're able to talk to friends or having professional support, improves your immune system, which I thought was really interesting as well. And so we see that it is really important. And so I want to ask Blue, what was your support group, and what have they done that's helped you? Or is there something you wished someone had done more to help you?
I think, first of all, what I would say is, I'm the type of a person that I struggle to ask for help anyways, in general. But the beauty in having community from church in the work environment, which when you think about work, you wouldn't associate to work with community as such, So for me, it started, of course, at church. I have a strong community where they were like happy to send food or like call on us if you need sleep or you want someone to change a diaper. There's other moms, so they were like offering their help. I think I just needed to channel that for me to be able to accept the help that was offered to me. And then in the workplace, which was so amazing, HR created a group where people could sign up for food parcels and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, wow, this is so cool. Like, this is so thoughtful, and, you know, thinking about moms, and because people don't know what you are struggling with. But I think for me, the thought really counted. Like, it went a long mile, and just knowing that I have support at work, and if I need anything, I can call on people at work and call on moms, and even people that are not moms, that are like, they understand the struggle, and knowing where we are as a country, you know, there's a lot of things that has been happening. We're emotionally tired and we're depressed and sad. So having that kind of support, also friends came through, like people that you think they know nothing about being a mom, but they were willing. I think, yeah, the willingness of the people for me was just such an highlight. And also just seeing God in that moment, you know, coming through. Also, some of the things that I really needed, and I was too scared to say that, oh, actually, I need a court, for an example, and I'll just speak between myself and my husband, and we're like, oh, yeah, we really need this because we can't have Onasha sleeping in between us or something like that. And then someone would say, oh, hey, I have this, and we're like, wow, look at that, you know. So it's been beautiful to see. And yeah, with the slide that you just showed, like when you have that kind of support, you don't, like, you are healthier, you know, you are able to handle your space much better, and you're not afraid for people to come see you, like how you look. If you, like, your breast is everywhere and you, like, your house is like a mess, people will come and clean up, and people give me an opportunity to take a shower, or, you know, or eat or take a nap, which was great. But it was hard for me because I'm not used to that kind of receiving that kind of help. But it taught me a lot about ask for what you need, and not be afraid to ask for what you need, because people will not know what you need, and they'll just go with the assumption that maybe this is what you need. But if people know exactly what kind of support you need, it helps them as well prepare better to support you emotionally, physically, and like holistically. Yeah.
Thanks, Lou.
Yeah.
Picking up on a few of those things, I think for many of the mums and dads in the room today, it may be knowing what is needed and asking the mom, do you need this, rather than waiting for it to ask. But I like the fact that you're saying it's something that you had to push yourself to do, to ask. And so it's having that encouraging conversation with mom around saying, do reach out and do ask. And some of the sort of quick things that you said supported you is like, which I think we don't really recognize, is just being able to take a shower or do the dishes or take a nap. And especially for the single mums or the mums that are parenting on their own, even teen mums, like, are we reaching out to them to see what little action we can take will help support? And I love the fact, though, because one of the things we'll talk about just now is also how do we support mum to continue growing in her faith. Often, you know, during the first 1,000 days, we've spoken about how mums and dads drop out of church because they've got a fussing baby or something. But how do we keep encouraging mum to grow in her faith, even if she is not attending church? And in that kind of instance, it looks like God worked through your church. And so I see here questions come up as a man, how do you support the woman after giving birth if you work all day and are also tired? I think you might know a bit about that with your husband.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah. I think from the beginning, when we spoke in the beginning, a lot of people that have experience, obviously, they'll say to us, you need to speak about expectations. And we struggled in the beginning because it's hard to speak about expectations if you don't know what the situation is going to, like, if you haven't experienced the situation, but especially with children and couples, it's hard. So we then discussed the basics, like, okay, who's going to change the nappies? And then my husband was like, okay, I'm keen on learning, and also bearing in mind that he comes from a culture where these things are not things that are normally done, but the willingness, because he wants to be involved in his child's life. So he was keen on taking the nappies because it's easier. He would be tired, obviously, during his work time, if he has a break, and then he will ask, can I change the nappy, and that was quite helpful to say, yeah, no, you can change the nappy, or bathing times, so just sharing the responsibilities that helped a lot. And then when Onacho was born, it was difficult because I was up and I was healing from the C-section. So I think also the willingness where he understands the pain and see the pain that I was going through pushed him to saying, okay, so what can I do, and ask me what I needed, and I would communicate, could you help me with making the food, for an example, or can you clean the kitchen, for an example, today, can you feed Onashe or help me feed Onashe? So it's basically the mom, we're more responsible to help our husband know exactly what we need, because they won't know, they can't read our minds. Sometimes we expect them to, because you look so tired, and can't you see that I'm tired? Can't you get on with it, and then with time we realize that, okay, so when he does a certain thing that I feel that I do it better, then I would get irritated. Again, it's my responsibility as a mom to say, love, I don't think this is the way you do it. Can I please show you how to do it? If he is keen on doing so. I always looked at how keen he is in doing something. So the moment he shows keen, and then I will then make it my responsibility to teach him how to do it in a way that it's not like he's sweating and dripping all over the baby, and it's like, oh, so much work, I work hard, and consider his work hours, so yeah, all that to say is men need to, or husbands or partners, they on their side, they need to know that their process starts when the baby is there. Because for us, it already started when the baby was inside. We've bonded and everything. So it also having to strike that balance that, okay, now I'm having to do more work because I didn't bond as much as my wife or partner bonded with the baby, and understanding that, and be willing. I think it's the best thing that you can do for your partner. Be willing and get out of your comfort zone. And we all work, we are all tired. And I think the power is be willing to ask, be willing to also communicate your hours, if you are tired, or whatever space you are in, so that then the wife or your partner can say, these are the things that I need help with for today, and then you can adjust in terms of your working and whatnot. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Because I also think, jumping to that, we can say that when you have two working parents, it takes strain on the marriage and relationship, and it can be very stressful. It can be very chaotic, and there's a constant maybe conflict of pressures. So for yourself and your husband, I know there's trying to combine careers, and if you have other kids, plus actually importantly spending time together and bonding together. If you think, for example, if he's come home late from work, it will affect you, and vice versa. If you come home late from work, it affects the family life. And so I think, firstly, as a man, I think you answered it quite nicely, of having that, or as a couple should say, having that open, honest conversation about setting expectations, and as a man, just being willing to do something like change a nappy or bath or something that supports mum. But as a church, maybe we can encourage mum to come up with a plan of how she's going to spend time with her partner or husband, so that she does prioritize that time as well. And I love, I don't know, Ruth, if you're able to share the one slide of how working couples can support one another. In preparing for today, we found a website that is Working Mums Thrive. And this is the one for the couples. I think it's the next one. Next one. Thank you. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So these are kind of some of the images that we found on the website. So I'm going to share that website with you. But I love what they come up with as ideas of how you can support each other, and exactly what you just said: communicate openly, work out the sharing of household chores, support one another's dreams, because you still have your dreams, even being parents, and take something off your partner's plate, as you mentioned, if it's just doing the dishes or cleaning the house, and celebrating and mourning together if there's things that have been happening as a family. Yeah, so just to do this time together. Recognizing that many mums, as I mentioned, may be single mums and don't have the dad around. And as a church, we can step in and be supportive in that way as well. But I think for mums also remembering that there's the day-to-day life and taking care of herself. I know that you are a wife, a mom, a worker, and a sister. And so how are you looking after yourself?
This has been one of the challenging ones. I think you've mentioned about mourning phase, you know, so when you become a new mom, you are still thinking you are the person without a child, and like you can just stand up and still go for a run or go for whatever worship set, whatever, you know, what keeps you going. So I found that first for me, it was quite challenging because there was a shift. I needed to accept that there's certain things that I will not be able to do as I used to do, and mourn that there are certain things that I'm going to outgrow and find new interest. So yeah, first accepting that that's what's happening took quite some time. And then in those new interests, what do I find myself gravitating towards to more? You know, like right now I enjoy like having company around, you know, that like fills me up, just listening to what people are doing, you know, what's motivating them, and because it's outside of my daily routine with Onashe and my family. So just hearing stories that really is encouraging, or someone sharing about a meal that they've tried out, and then I'll come home and be like, oh, I must try this, and then see what it tastes like. And I won't obviously tell my husband and my sister, and I'll be like, okay, guys, I have something to share with you. And then, you know, and I'll try it, and they'll be like, wow, what is this? And I'll tell them it's a secret. So that keeps me going, you know, and also just seeing my husband taking care of himself, it gives me so much peace. Like he, because emotionally also it affects them, you know, they go through a lot. I've seen it. So he also exercises, takes time to exercise, and that motivates me to say when I'm ready and willing, I'll go, because he's started it. He started the journey, and I'm gonna go back because I used to enjoy it. And also just listening to stories online, like of moms, what they are doing, how they're coping, and watching videos. So for now, that's what I can handle. Yeah.
That's great. And I know you are part of the worship team at church, so I know you enjoy that as well.
That too. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a place where I feel like I vomit, you know, like other people enjoy certain things, but worship for me, it's like, man, I'm in another world, and and also just serving God's people as well, acknowledging what he has done for me through this whole process. I mean, my pregnancy was not easy, but just seeing God's faithfulness and just being able to keep Onashe alive for 6 months, guys. Oh my goodness. You know, so I'm grateful for that. And yeah, in celebration, I sing. In sadness, I sing. And it really motivates me, and it keeps me going. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. And what we call a lot of what you've just mentioned is self-care. And I think it's something we need to remind ourselves, but also moms and dads, that they need to look after themselves. And it's not selfish. In fact, it's vital to take care of ourselves so that we can achieve all that we want to. And sometimes that does mean saying no to things and saying yes to other things. But as I said, it's called self-care. And I think moms especially tend to not focus on that because they have to run the household. They're responsible for baby's health and food and safety and education, make sure baby's clothed and sleeps well, and also cleaning the house and looking after the husband or partner. And so as mom is needing to also respond to baby's needs, both physically, like food and bath time and clothes, but also emotionally, like soothing baby, talking lovingly to baby, building a bond, which we know for all of those part of Sikunya is that by responsively caring for baby, it's building baby's brain and ensuring baby grows up healthy and thriving. And so if mum doesn't take care of herself, then she's not able to provide this kind of care for her baby. And so when we see mum is struggling or not coping, even if it's things like feeding or bathing or putting baby to sleep, we can see that it's just not done well if she's not coping. And that in the end, it's the baby's the one that is affected. And because of mum not being in a good space, she's not able to provide what her child needs. And so I think if we think of some of the phrases you might have heard, I've heard people say is, but you're just at home all day, like with baby, you don't do anything, you should be fine. Or you can sleep when baby sleeps, or you don't have to be around people all day, you don't need to expend energy. These are not helpful comments and ignores the fact that mum actually needs to care for herself. And as we said in the very beginning, remembering that she's working 2.5 jobs, so being just a mum at home. And so there's a lot that mum needs in order to care for herself. And so during this time of transition, we're looking at a way that churches can surround families. In this case, it is mums, but there is support that's needed for dad as well. But in this practical workshop, we're looking at how to support mums who are returning to work. And we see that the support will come from a person that's already in relationship with mum or has the pastoral care and empathy qualities within more than likely a woman that can go and journey with mum and talk to mum. Maybe we call it a home visitor. Maybe there's a home visitor or an elder or a congregant that's friends with mum or has that relationship and building a positive and supportive relationship with mum. And so some tips that you could, as a church, share with mum that are loving and they're caring, and it's just to encourage mum, is to encourage mum to practice some self-care, like you mentioned, whether it's singing, whether it's talking to other people, reaching out, exercise, just some self-care, getting good sleep, if you're able to get good sleep. And then help mum to make a plan. So sit down with her as a friend and help her to plan some simple steps. So for example, how is mum going to cope? So when things get stressful, help her think through who are her supportive people. Like, what does she do to cope with stress? So like you mentioned about reminding yourself, to listen to stories, get advice from other mums, sing. So help mum write that list of what she can do to cope and where she can get her support from. Ask mum, what does she currently do to care for herself, and help her think through some other ways that she can add things to her daily activities to ensure she is caring for herself. We found something saying help her make a maintenance plan. So it's things that, as I said, she can do throughout the day to build good habits that do care for herself, but then also an emergency plan so that if something goes wrong, what activities can she do? Who can she call? Who can contact her? And maybe it's something she said before to someone at church: if I go quiet, you don't hear from me, please contact me. And to write a list of affirming phrases that she can use for herself and read out to herself. And also just to ask mum if she's going to make a commitment to follow these kind of plans or decisions, and if she would like you to check in with her to make sure she is doing that. Other than family, work is where mum spends most of her time. So encourage mum to make friends in the workplace, if not already. And because that will help life be a whole lot easier when you have friends at work. And we see here on the screen that the 3 reasons why is that they allow you to be real, that they can sense when you need what you're needing, and that they always have your back. And I think often in workplaces we try to put on the best of ourselves and show that we are working and proving ourselves, but often actually needing that support to realize it's the reality of being a mom. And as I mentioned, to keep encouraging mum in her relationship with God, journey with her through that by praying with her. Maybe it's on a Sunday, you meet up with her, you pray with her, or during the week, and praying for her when you're at home, and reminding her that you are praying for her. If you have any other ideas of how you as a church can be supporting mum, please put it in the chat box, because I'd love to hear other ideas of how you have supported a mum returning to work. And I think, my question is how do we help mum be the kind of mum and working mum that she wants to be? And I think, sadly, a lot of women in South Africa are simply working to earn money to feed their children. And it's not because it's a passion or they enjoy the work that they're doing, or it's their favorite job. And added on to this, I think mums don't get to spend as much time with their baby or their children. And they have all the emotions about leaving their child to go to work. And I think this can be quite soul destroying for mums, which ultimately impacts her relationship with her baby and her family life. And so as a local church member, or as the local church who's surrounding mums, if you have women who can empathize and encourage mum that's not getting to spend time with her baby, or she's not coping, to help her find ways to cope and to be the kind of mum that she wants to be to her baby while still working. And I think one of the key things that with mum now working is that she's not spending time with her baby. But as the local church, we can remind mum that she can still bond and play with her baby and show responsive caregiving, even if it's just for 15 minutes a day. And this is really vital for babies' healthy development. So as a local church, or as members of the church, we can help mum prioritize spending time with her baby when she returns home. It's whether it's singing, dancing, playing, reading to baby, bathing baby. I know that for Anashe, Blue's husband has made bathing time family time.
Yeah.
Which is really important. So both of them bath baby and spend time with him. And it's a priority that Blue was telling me how she wanted to go make dinner last night, and her husband said, no, like bath time is family time. And so it's making sure you prioritize that time and stick to it, because all these things, no matter how small, will help mum bond with her baby and keep that bond, and make her feel like she's not missing out on her baby growing up. And it will continue to build baby's brain and continue to build healthy relationships with baby. You would have heard us speak about Vroom. It's an app that you can get. And there's ideas of how to play with baby or build baby's brain each day, even for 10, 15 minutes a day. So really encourage you to have a look at that. I will post the link in the chat box for the website, but you can download the app. And if you have a look at that, you could send, they have little images of the game or the thing to do with baby, whether it's peekaboo or playing in the bath, and what it's doing to the baby's brain and to the bond between mum and dad and baby. And so you could send that image to mum on WhatsApp. And so just encourage you to be sending ideas to mum, and something will be something that she relates to and can do. I know that you're also doing that. And if you're an employer who's here today, have you considered some of these things? So how are you encouraging and supporting baby's development by recognizing that the women in your care or in your job are mums, and they need to spend time with their baby every day? And so how are you encouraging that family time to ensure that babies are growing up happy and healthy and thriving? I do believe that all employers also play a very big role in helping babies thrive. And so I'm going to go over some resources very quickly that we're going to put into the chat box that you can look at. I just want to say that these may not fit into your context, but I hope that they will help you to think about ways of how you can support mum in your church and in your community. Just to remember as that there is no one size fits all approach in supporting a mum returning to work. It's not something that you can just do with every mum. Each mum will have her own struggles, her own challenges. and many mums actually don't have a choice or an option of when they go back to work. It may be a necessity to go back to work. So in supporting different mums, because there may be mums that do get to choose, it's a time to see mum for her situation and what she is needing. And so it's an individual case of how you support mum returning to work and how you can be that support and encouragement during this time. And again, just keep, as I keep saying, reminding her of the kind of mum she wants to be and how you can support her to be that. So as those images that we sent or was showing on the screen, Ruth is going to paste the link in the chat box now to have a look through if any of those can help you in sending to mum or supporting mum. But some of the tips that we can give mum, and I'm going to be sending this out in a resource after today, so do look out for that. It can be something that you check or you send to mum as well, is encourage mum to ask for flexibility. So if she's permanently employed, can she work from home? Can she change the hours that she works? Maybe change the days that she was working, or maybe change some of the work that she was previously doing to make sure it's not harmful work that she's doing. So to be brave to ask for flexibility with her boss. To look or consider having a backup childcare plan. So figuring out a childcare plan early is really important for mum to feel prepared. I think for you, Blue, to know who's going to look after your baby, but then also what happens if, for example, the carer is sick, or maybe the nursery closes. So what is the backup plan? And so who can mum call on? It may be a family member, a friend, a neighbor, the ECD down the road. But it's really important that mum knows who her backup person is, and possibly to put it written down and put it like on the fridge or something that she remembers in times of crisis. You mentioned getting into a routine and practicing a routine. And so encouraging mum to set up a routine early, especially I think a morning routine. Is that something that you found? Is that, you know, babies do best on the days that are organized and they know what they're expecting as well. And so does mum. Like on the days that are organized, she knows what to expect. And so working on a routine with both parents, whether married or living separately, mum and dad can both work on this routine and keep it in place for them and baby. Preparing to pump or expressing milk. We encourage mum to exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. So this is only breast milk for 6 months, and she can continue for as long as possible. But UNICEF says WHO says up to 2 years. And this is actually possible if mum is prepared. So she'll need to have the pump. She'll have to make sure she's got the bottles, a way to store the milk. I know that's been a big thing for Blue, like trying to work out what works well for her being at work in terms of expressing. And so it's a good way of mum preparing for this and maybe practicing it out before she starts work, so that baby's also ready for it. And reminding mum of the act that allows her to have 2 30-minute breaks to breastfeed or express milk that's in a hygienic and well-ventilated area. And I think is to prioritize, to help mum make a daily to-do list that really helps her know what she needs to do, and to ask other people for help, as you mentioned, so that when she's working, she can come home and know that she's also got the support there with things that need to be done. As you mentioned, the reaching out to others is not an easy thing. So keep encouraging mum to talk to other mums, to talk to friends, to talk through some of the challenges she's facing, the fears, and how she's going to handle going back to work. And if you find that mum goes quiet and nobody's hearing from her, to actively reach out to her and engage her. Remind mum to take some time for herself, and whether it's during the week or each day, just to care for herself. And as the church, we can support mum through the emotions she's feeling. because she may have separation anxiety or guilt from leaving a baby. As a church, we can keep affirming her and saying, well done in what you're doing, and you're being a good mom, and these feelings are normal. And yeah, and going back to work can be scary. And I know Blue's doing amazingly well at being at work and being a good mom as well. And I think as a church, we can keep checking in with mum on the days or weeks after she's returned to work, just to see how she's coping and reminding her to reach out to her support network. But above all, we can pray for mum and with mum, and just keep encouraging her through prayer. I also would just say thanks to Blue for coming, taking an hour out of her work day and being vulnerable and telling us how things have been. But I hope it's given us as the church and as individuals ideas of how we can support mum, and whether that is a meal, offering a meal when baby's born, whether it's just a WhatsApp checking in, whether it's a prayer, or coming to work at a friend's house. So you have company. So thanks so much, Blue. Over to you, Ruth.
Thanks, Bryony. Thank you, Blue. Thanks, Blue, for joining us today. And thank you, everybody. In preparing for this practical workshop, we realized that a lot of what we're talking about is surrounding mom and equipping mom in a way. And one of the ministries that can be really helpful to do this well is home visiting. And I'd love to encourage you, if you don't have home visiting yet in your church, we are running our home visiting training starting on the 8th of May. And so if you would like to get some volunteers in your church trained up to be home visitors, that they can journey with mom from pregnancy through the transition of birth, through the transition of what we've just spoken about today, returning to work, they can join this training. Applications for this training close on Friday, the 21st of April. If you need more information, you're welcome to contact us or to go to our website to find out more about this home visiting ministry. But this is something that churches can be doing to equip families and to walk with families and to journey with moms and to surround moms. Bryony has posted the application form in the link, but you can go to our website and find this home visiting training there. And so as church leaders, you might want to recruit some women in your church who are very caring and pastoral, that could journey with moms and support them through these transition moments like we've spoken about today. Our next practical workshop we're going to be looking at in June. We're going to be looking at how we can support all the caregivers in baby's life. And so you're welcome to sign up for that on our website and to see all the information.